So Suzanne, you work with a lot of couples.
Yes.
So couples who haven't been to therapy before don't always know what to expect from therapy.
Yeah.
So what would you how would you explain it to couples who haven't been?
Yeah.
What can they expect?
Look, it's probably a lot less daunting than they think it is once they're in the room. Like, that's the main feedback I get once, couples sit in there and kind of, you greet each other and
Yes.
you realise you're all just people.
Yeah.
It's a lot less daunting. And usually the first session in particular, the world's not changing in that one session. So it's literally about getting to know each other, getting to know where they're at the moment, where the problems are, and then it's about getting the history.
Yes.
So it's about the relationship history. We might even look back a little bit further just to get an idea how things are going and what the current problem is. And my position as a relationship counsellor would be to look at the relationship. So it's not about individuals anymore, and it's basically the third client in the room is the relationship.
Yes.
I'm assessing that in the first few sessions, see how communication is going. So that would take up probably about 2 sessions.
Yeah.
And then usually the work starts. Clients, they live their life in the meantime, and there's other issues coming up or the same ones repeating, and then you go into the nitty-gritty bit of it and really hone down on communication skills and connection and those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So when do you think is a good idea for couples to come to counselling? What would be the key signs that they should start thinking about coming to counselling?
Well, look, generally what is recommended or suggested is that whenever you think you need it, you should go.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is also been a study done by Gottman, and he's, in their experience, it's about 6 years that couples, married couples or not married couples, think about counselling before they actually go.
Right.
And 6 years is a very long time.
Yeah.
It's a very long time for resentments to build up, and sometimes, it takes a long time to repair wounds and
Yes.
rifts and resentments and all of that sort of stuff. So the earlier the better, of course.
Yeah.
But there's no too early, but there can be a too late.
Yes.
So it's probably a good idea to, if you feel like you get stuck with the same problem over and over again and you just can't break the pattern at all on your own, even within, half a year or something, then it's probably a good idea to have someone external have a look at it with you.
Yeah. Okay. And a common concern for couples is that the counsellor might side with one partner and not the other partner. So, how common is that? How do you work your way around that? How do you remain neutral?
Yeah. Look, I can only speak for myself because I don't see how other counsellors work, but I don't think it happens very often. As I said, from my perspective, I'm the person that looks at the relationship, and the relationship doesn't work with just one person, it's always 2.
Yes.
So even though oftentimes couples come and one say, well, it's always you who does this, or, blaming each other, but it is about taking responsibility for your own part in it, right? Because no situation exists on its own, there's 2 people in this process.
Yeah.
So, and both people will have to take some responsibility for the way they interact, for the way they respond, for the way they kind of carry themselves, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it might appear like siding, I don't know, hopefully not, but sometimes I might say, look, have you thought about doing this differently to a particular partner? And maybe the next time I'll say something to the other one. So it's balanced, I think.
Yes.
And I'm not pro or against anyone. I'm just, trying to help the couple come to something that they can share again.
Yeah. And maybe some people in the partnership are not ready to hear that when you're reflecting their behaviour back.
Yeah.
So it may seem like siding, but you're reflecting.
Yeah. And on that note, what I would always do is I will check in with the partner. That might, how do you perceive this? How do you feel with me saying this? They might become defensive.
Yes.
And then you can straighten a room work with that defensiveness. Kind of, okay, is this something that you experience in the relationship when you get criticised? Is this something that comes up for you? And how do you then express this? And then you can work with it right in the room and kind of have a different approach to it.
Yes.
So they can have a different experience straight away and the partner can witness.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic, really.
Okay. And what happens in a couples session when one partner has different motives, or they may have already checked out? Because sometimes that can occur.
It can.
Especially if they've left counselling past that 6 years or too late where the relationship is
too many resentments. It does happen. And in all honesty, there's very little that one can do. If one's checked out, that's one of the occasions where it's probably too late.
Yes.
So there is this idea around, okay, is someone completely checked out, or is there still a little bit of hope?
Yeah.
When that person can express that there is a little bit of hope there, a little bit of willingness, then you can work with that.
Yes.
If a person's pretty clear, now I'm out of here and this is just me trying to wash my hands off, or the goal of relationship counselling obviously changes, right?
Yes.
It's not going to be about bringing anyone together or getting them to a position to make a good decision.
Yeah.
It's made.
So would that then become about exiting cleanly, or
It depends.
exiting well or in a healthy way, if that's even possible?
It depends. It depends on how much the client that's sort of already stepped out is willing to participate in that process.
Yes.
Because sometimes what can happen is they come and they basically drop the partner off that's going to be left, right? So they're looked after in that moment.
Yes.
And they're not really interested in anything other than that,
Yeah.
So, but you can, of course, when, sometimes couples come and they're not sure if they want to be staying together, and then this space is there for them to work it out, to have conversations beyond, just yelling at each other or being silent, and you have the space there to reflect and kind of really come up with a good decision and not regret it.
Yes.
So, and then that's a good space to use that, even for separation, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have all our counsellors work differently in terms of working with couples together and potentially separating them for counselling and then bringing them back together for couples counselling. So every counsellor works a little bit differently with that. So what are your kind of thoughts and process on that?
Well, it's not as, how should I say this? It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So I will see couples always together at the beginning, for sure.
Yes.
And then at times I will suggest individual sessions, but usually there's only one session and it has to be offered to both of them. So you don't have the bias or one thinking,
right,
there's some siding happening. But also I will sometimes do that when I can see problems within the relationship that are a little bit more individualized problems for one party. And I feel like I have the skills to help them, but it would really be an individual session in that moment.
Yes.
So it would be more beneficial for them on their own, and I would offer that to the other partner as well.
Yeah.
But generally, I try and see them together.
What about disclosure? So what about if one person in the couple discloses something to you in that individual session? How do you approach that when it comes back to working with them together as a couple? Yeah,
so I'm bound by confidentiality both occasions. So as a couple, that is confidential, but in individual sessions, then that is confidential. So I can't go out. If someone discloses something, I think, well, that would be important to know for the other person. I'm not the one to disclose it. I can't.
Yeah.
What I would do is I would discuss with the person in session to see how much of it they want to disclose.
Yes.
And if they don't, then we would look at why not and what's the problem with that, and is there anything that can be done about that,
Yes.
But I certainly can't.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
But this is also
helpful.
It is helpful. But this is also why individual sessions sometimes are a bit of an iffy subject.
Yeah.
Because you kind of sometimes you might rupture the relationship you have with the clients because the other might be a bit suspicious, or if they come because of infidelity, if they come, that is the topic of counselling.
Yes.
And then you kind of separate the couple. The one that's already suspicious or has been betrayed, they might not feel that comfortable with that, So you got to weigh up the situation and see what's best.
So you take it on a case-by-case basis, basically. Yeah.
But
Great.
some counsellors will have it rigidly, you see the couple, then 2 individual sessions and then back together.
Yes.
So that is also okay.
What advice would you give to couples who feel like they need counselling but can't afford the fees?
That's hard. I feel for them because it is, I know I make my money with that, but it is very expensive.
Yes.
So what I would probably suggest is to look at, I know we offer it, for example, I don't know if ours does couples, but there's community services out there that do offer free counselling.
Yes.
There's Relationship Australia's, they have free resources and at times free counselling. There's low fee clinics that will take people on. And then there's good resources. If you look at John Gottman Institute, there's a lot of stuff online that couples can look into, especially about strength-based work and kind of increasing connection and emotional connectedness, which is nice to kind of just get a start on things. The same thing, easy read, but super effective, is the 5 Love Languages.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is a nice book, audiobook, or, you know, if you don't enjoy reading but listening to things. So you can have that as a start and just see if you know, any of that sticks and works, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, anything that breaks the pattern that you're kind of in at the moment is going to be useful. Yeah.
Okay. And there's a broad range of couples therapists out there with lots of different personality types. They're not going to kind of suit every couple.
No. Yeah.
So what should people do if they go to couples counselling and then they're not happy with their therapist or happy with the way it's going?
Yeah. It's tricky because no one likes to tell people that, look, you're not good enough for us, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to tell people like, oh, I wasn't too happy with that.
Yeah.
But personally, what I will do at the end of every session, I will ask for feedback. And I was like, look, was this the right stuff we talked about? How do you feel in the room? Does this work for you? It's okay if not, you know, there's other counsellors. And I am actually happy for people to tell me.
Yes.
It hasn't happened often that people in the moment say, no, that doesn't work. But, you know, again, if someone in the session says this is actually not quite the right fit, this gives the opportunity to then find something together that will work, you know, and for them to, you know, express something they might be uncomfortable with and get a good feedback with that is still a win in my eyes, you know. So don't be shy. Hopefully your counsellor or therapist will ask, but if they don't ask, don't just let it drizzle out and think they're all the same and never go again. Keep looking until you find someone.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the cost of couples counselling.
Yeah.
Is it worth the cost or the investment?
I mean, you're talking to a counsellor who, you know, works with couples. I think it's definitely worth the cost and the investment, but you have to look why you're going. Yeah. If like we spoke earlier, if someone's already checked out.
Yes.
Now this is a pretty blunt statement, but you're better off saving your money. Yeah, in that instance. But if you feel, you know, you want to work on this relationship, if you're tight with money, as I said, there's other options out there. But if you really feel like this is worth your time and money, then I think it's a good thing to do. Just be aware it's not a fix in like 4 sessions, 5 sessions. It's a longer process, and it might be. Now I'm running back to something you said earlier, but it might at the beginning might be a 2-weekly sort of process, and then it'll stretch further. You know, you might be a month, and then a check-in every few months or something like that. You know, but it is definitely worth the investment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most common issues that couples come for counselling?
Most common issues, you can usually boil it down to communication issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So usually something within the communication between the partners has gone so amiss that it ends up being a sort of defense attack sort of perceived dynamic. So that usually is what it boils down to. But there's a whole range of things that the couple presents with that they think is the problem.
Yes.
And that can be gambling issues for the partner. It could be infidelity. It could be just simplify for work. Yeah, and the problems that come with that in terms of arranging the week, and you know, if you have kids, like 1 week with partner, 1 week without, is a completely different setup. Yeah. Sometimes it's life transitions. It's having a baby or about to have a baby. Sometimes it is entering a new relationship and wanting to get it right because the one before didn't work out. Yeah. All sorts of things. And yeah, but most of the time it is somehow the couples feel like they can't be vulnerable with each other and they can't open up to each other. So they hold things in and resentment builds.
Yes.
So this is what we would do. We would unpack a lot of that stuff and have them experience in the room what it's like when they open up, and that the world's not ending and no one's dying and the relationship still exists.
Yes.
Yeah. And to have the courage to kind of keep doing that even outside session.
Yeah. Would you say that most couples will have the need to or come to couples therapy during the length of their relationship?
No. I think a lot of people will have the ability and the circumstances around them are often right enough that that they're not stresses in every area of their life. So usually when there's only one, two stresses in their life, people can tend to be able to solve things on their own, given a bit of time and effort. But sometimes with couples, it starts as a couple issue, but then maybe there is a baby in the mix all of a sudden, or a job change, or a parent dies, or like all of a sudden there's more to it.
Yes.
And that is when couples then get really stuck in issues, right? And then sometimes they need someone from the outside to help them kind of find their path again.
Yes.
But my role is not, like, as soon as they can do their own thing again, that's me done, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want them to keep coming back.
Yes.
I want them to go out and have their little, the way they used to do things, And of course there's couples that might not be the case for. They might need more help, more longer term help, or sometimes they're not the right fit. That can happen, but even that is something you work out in counselling. It's not me suggesting that, it's them coming to that conclusion themselves,
Yes.
But I don't think everyone needs it. So jumping back to when couples can't afford counselling, So I mentioned some resources they can go to, some books maybe to listen to. The other thing I would say is do it as a couple. So do it together. And read maybe a few pages of the same book, and then have a bit of a chat about that, and share your experiences.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, helpful.